The first part that we're going to start building is the front half chassis. And make sure you refer to your manual while watching this, because this video is an aid, a visual aid, but the manual can also clarify things, and that's available online and comes with your Raspberry Pi car. But the first front half chassis, you're going to need your little chassis bit, which looks like this, and you're going to want the copper standoffs, which are the brass looking type pieces, and then you want the nuts, and you kind of want to just screw them in together in the holes indicated. And when you're done, your piece should look like this. For the next piece, you're going to need these M4 self-locking nuts, these M4 screws right here, and these flange bearings. In addition to this, you're going to want these pieces here, which are the steering connectors, the bearing shields, and hex front wheel fixing plates. And a little wrench will be very, very helpful for the next step. In the video, we're just going to be doing it with one wheel, but it's the exact same thing for the other wheel. And here you can see Jaden assembling the little tire bit, and you can see him insert the hexagonal bit into the little hexagonal hole in a minute here. And you're just going to want to layer those three. 1, 2, 3. It'll take him a second there. And you're going to want to layer that with the 3 circular bits as well. Those 3. But you want to put the flange on a little bolt and put the steering director thing, the big piece, and make sure it's facing the right way, because otherwise it won't work. It might take a second to put in, but it'll go in eventually, and with some effort, with a lot of effort apparently, and just put in the little circular bearing shields. And after you take the flange and you put it in the hole, you want to take the self-locking nut and just screw it in at the end to make sure it stays. And with a little bit of warning, you might need a little bit of help. It's not as simple as it looks. We needed some extra help, so just be patient with it. But here it looks at the end. And like I said previously, just make sure you assemble the next front wheel the same way, but just make sure that the steering connector is facing the opposite direction so it's symmetrical. So the next piece we're going to build is the steering part, and you just need a tiny little baby screw and a white piece like that, and you want to insert the little screw in the hole, and then make sure you insert the white piece on the first hole, and it will look something like this when you are done. And please note the placement of the screw here, and it'll take a little bit of effort to get the screw into the tiny hole. The next part that we're going to be building is the upper plate, and you're going to want these M2.5 copper standoffs, and you're going to want the M2.5 nuts. And you just want to take your little piece and screw it in the dots indicated. In the end, your piece with the screws will look just like this. For our next piece, you are going to need these M3 nuts and M3 countersunk screws, your battery holder, and the blue ribbon. The first thing you want to do is take the blue ribbon and cut it in half like we did, because you're going to weave it together, weave it into the part on 2 separate sides. When you're done, it should look something like this, and then it's time to insert the battery pack. And here is where you want to take your screws and screw it in the 2 holes at the bottom to secure the battery pack. And you can see we have the screws, and then we have the nuts to fully secure it. And make sure you screw it in and secure it on the 2 holes in the bottom of the battery pack so it looks like this. The next piece, we're going to need M3 copper standoffs and M3 screws. And you're going to want to screw the standoffs in the holes indicated here. When you're done, your piece should look like this. The next piece, you're going to need M2.5 times 6 screws, M2.5 times 12 screws, M2.5 nuts, and M2.5 copper standoffs. And now you only need the Raspberry Pi and the robot hats. So what you want to do, you want to take your Raspberry Pi and your copper standoffs, get those out, and then you want to take your Raspberry Pi and place it right there on the chassis and screw it in and make sure it's secure. And then you're going to want to take, not this piece because we grabbed the wrong one, and you want to take this piece over here, the square looking one. And that's the robot hats. And you want to mount it right on top where you see those 4 screw mounts. And once you've screwed in the first piece, you need your M2.5 nuts, and you want your M2.5 times 12 screws. And you're going to secure the next piece, which is the PWM driver, which is going to be right here.
Oh, that's good.
And you just need to screw this in like you have the other pieces, and that's it. Next, you want to install the motor driver. So you want to take this little piece and install it where the 4 holes are here. And you just want to screw it in like you have the other pieces. And once you're done, it'll look something like this. The next step is assembling the rear motors. So you're going to need your whole chassis, your motors, this bit to mount the motors, this black bit, and then you're going to need your M3 nuts and your M3 times 25 screws. It is important to note that when you mount your motors, you want to mount them where the wires are facing inwards. In the next video clip, you're going to see that we first mounted them incorrectly, but we realized our mistakes and fixed it. So just go ahead and not repeat our mistakes and mount them like we suggest here. And this part is pretty straightforward. Just take your long screws and screw them in and then attach the nuts at the end to secure them. We struggled a little bit, but I think that was mainly because the first time we inserted it the wrong way. So just make sure it's flipped. And the next step is attaching the rear wheel motors to the actual chassis. I'm going to take your chassis and you have 4 M3 nuts, and you just want to flip it over, tuck the wires in, and just insert the ends of the standoffs that were previously screwed in and screw in the nuts. And when it's all done, it should look like this, and make sure you untuck all of your wires so that they're not stuck anywhere. The next step, you are going to need 2 rear wheels and this short double wire. To insert the wheels, you just want to rotate them and insert them gently on each side, and they should go in pretty easily. Then you want to insert your power source by taking this wire here and plugging it in right there. To continue connecting the power, you want to take the short double wire and insert it right there and connect it all the way on the other side in that little socket that you can see. And next we're connecting the servos and the modules. You're going to need your servo, this 5 short wire, 4 short wire, and 2 short wire. And you're going to connect them as follows. And please note that when connecting this wire, it's going to seem like it's a little bit of a stretch, and it'll fit a little bit awkwardly, but it'll work. Then we proceeded to connect the motors to the place implied here, and just take a look to make sure that all of your wirings are in the correct place before you move on. Now it is time to start coding your car, and you want to start by downloading Raspberry Pi and getting the source code. And once you have that, you want to go to the code directory. After programming and adjusting the servo to 90 degrees, attach the servo to the chassis. So now you're going to need your 2 front wheels, your front half chassis, your M3x8 screws, and your rocker screws and arm. For this step, you're going to want to turn your vehicle over and connect your steering part that you made in the beginning to the servo that has been turned 90 degrees. Now we're just mounting the wheels to the front of the car, and you just want to carefully insert them to make sure that they are relatively secure. Now we're installing the front half chassis to the upper plate, and to do this you want to turn your vehicle upside down and carefully screw it in to its correct place. And now that you have this part assembled, it is time to get your robot configured. And now you are done with your Raspberry Pi car.